Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to go over a basic hip hinge, or more specifically, an RDL, or Romanian deadlift. There's a bunch of other deadlifts that we can do, and that's a very common question I get is, exactly how do I do a deadlift? Well, doing a deadlift is teaching a hip hinge, and there's many different variations. If you would like to see a sumo deadlift, I have another video on exactly how to do a sumo deadlift. But a quick overview of what they all are, what the benefits are, who should do them. Answer that question is quickly, everybody. Okay, a deadlift is an exercise that uses nearly every single muscle in your body. It's a posture exercise, it's a correctional exercise, it's a fat burning exercise, it's a strength exercise. So regardless of exactly what your goals are, there's a variation of the deadlift that we can do, albeit, different reps, different weights, different rest periods that we want to take along with it to exactly fit your goal. But a basic hip hinge is teaching you how to use your posterior chain correctly. So those of you not familiar with the term posterior meaning behind, chain meaning a link, is essentially from the back of your head all the way down to the heels. So it's everything that connects. So your calves, your hamstrings, your glutes, your lower back, your upper back, all the way up into your cervical spine. Okay, so there's muscles that follow you all the way up through your spine. And basically we're teaching those muscles how to properly brace the spine to bulletproof your body, improve your posture, and basically just teach you basic foundational functional motions. So let me go over I'll do this real quick before I get into it, but starting with the most knee dominant to most hip dominant deadlift patterns. You're going to see a trap bar deadlift, which is where you have the bar that surrounds you. You have the handles on the side. That along with a sumo deadlift, which I have an instructional video on, so feel free to check that out, which is the more wider stance, toes out. Those two are the most knee dominant motions. And what I mean by that is they're probably going to take the least amount of pressure on the lower back. So they're the safest. They're typically the ones that I start with teaching clients who have zero experience with a deadlift. They're going to be a little bit more quad dominant because that's what operates the knee, right? And then you build up into a conventional deadlift, and there's all different variations even to a conventional deadlift as far as if you're using a kettlebell, a dumbbell, a straight bar. And then you build up into an RDL, which is what this video is primarily going to focus on, is Romanian deadlift. So the difference between a Romanian deadlift and the other three that I covered before is the Romanian deadlift is primarily used as a loaded stretch, and we really only care about the down motion. Whereas the other three, we care about bracing your spine and pulling something from a dead stop on the ground. So we care about the up motion, okay? So there's a little bit of a difference here. So as you see, I got this PVC pipe. This is a tool I like to use with a lot of clients to try to teach them exactly how to do a hip hinge. A hip hinge is a little bit difficult for me to show you virtually. I'm going to do my absolute best here, but if you are really still struggling with this, seek out a qualified coach or a personal trainer to get hands-on help, because there's different cues and different placements as far as hands, feet, that can really help you because there's no one specific deadlift pattern that is going to be the same for me as it is for you. So getting a hands-on coach in this world, I know is a little more challenging, but they're going to help you even more if you can't quite perfectly get it during this video. All right, so let's hop into it. I'll show you what I use this for, a few little cues. So essentially you want to put this right along your spine. Okay, we want to make sure, I'll do my best in this video to show you, I'll get a little closer. We want to make sure using both arms that this is connected to every part, right? Every part of my back is touching. So you can see right now my back is nice and flat. My core is engaged, allowing that spine to stay neutral, and I can feel every little vertebrae touching that PVC pipe. Now, what we see a lot is during the down motion and also during your typical daily activities, you sit at a desk a lot, you're doing a lot of this, right? Texting, typing, whatnot, your shoulders start to round. So we're trying to get, this is where you see the postural and correctional part of this exercise, is we want to make sure that you're pulling your shoulder blades back, pulling your chest out. That way you have a nice neutral spine and you still have that spine pressed right up against this, okay? The other thing that we see too is people want to increase their mobility, and maybe you're a female that wears heels a lot, okay? So you're going to naturally have a anterior pelvic tilt because you need to make up for that weight distribution change because you're all up on your heels, right? So if you're on heels, you're always going to be leaning forward, so you got to actually change your hips so you're actually standing still straight up. So now if you can see, it's kind of tough with my shirt. Now there you go. So my back is, or my lower back is arched. I have an anterior pelvic tilt going on with my hips. So now if I were to lift something up in this type of postural position, I'm going to get a lot of pressure on that lower back, okay? So once again, we want to make sure we squeeze the belly, okay? And everything is pressed right into that. So this is one way that I use this PVC pipe as a tool to teach people exactly, where their posture should be when going into a deadlift, all right? So let's go over a few stances. And once again, this is primarily going over just an RDL. So different deadlift patterns have different stances, different hip width. For an RDL, we're going to set up roughly feet about shoulder width, if not hip width. So a little bit narrower, toes straight ahead. If you want, you can bring the toes out a little bit. That'll force the glutes to work, okay? And then let me give you the side view. Because a hip hinge, the knees are never locked, okay? So they always have a slight little bend in them, soft knees. Once they have that, that's all they do. Now it's all your hips. You want to pretend you're acting your hips as a hinge. So pretend someone's behind you, all right? And they just lassoed you, okay? They got the lasso and it's right around your belt buckle, right around your waist. And they are just pulling you back, okay? So if they just pull me back and I'm bolted into the ground at this position, this is what's going to happen. My butt's going to go back. My chest is going to come forward and down. I'm going to start to get this crazy stretch going on in the hamstrings that attach up into the glutes. All my weight stays back in my heels. I don't know if you can see this, but my toes are twinkling. I don't have any weight on my toes, and my back is flat. Okay, so that's essentially what a hip hinge looks like. Okay, whereas something like a squat, which is knee dominant motion, is going to look like this. Okay, a little bit wider stance. So it's a knee dominant motion. If you're doing a deadlift correctly, a RDL, you should feel tension in the hamstrings as you go down. You should feel a stretch. And then coming up, you should feel the butt squeeze. That's what operates your hips and puts it into a lockout position. Once you add weight, you're going to get the added benefit of pulling your shoulder blades back, engaging your lats, and that's going to correct your posture a little bit, okay? So let's put it kind of all together now. We have this, right? Let me change my hands so you can see a little better. My back is flat into that. Okay, so I have good posture. My stance is hip width apart, toes straight ahead. I have my soft knees, they're not bent. And someone just lassoed me. They got me right around the hips. So they're now pulling me back, pulling me back, pulling me back, pulling me back. Okay? Boom. This is the bottom position of your RDL. So if you're holding a weight, which I'll get into, we'll pretend like this is a bar, it'll be hanging just off the ground. So you're actually not pulling from the ground, as I explained earlier in this video. The RDL is really just a low stretch. Now you're going to squeeze your glutes to come right up. Okay, and then you just repeat for whatever your exercise prescription as far as, anywhere from 2 to 5 sets and anywhere from 3 to 15 reps. Okay, so the one point I want to make before I show this as a bar is an RDL is a very slow motion. Okay, as I've repeated myself 100 times in this video already, is that it is used as a loaded stretch. Okay, so it's designed to strengthen and loosen your hamstrings in your posterior chain. So an ideal rep would look like a 3-second down, a 1-second pause at the bottom to really hold that stretch, and then a 1 to 2 second glute squeeze on the way up. So if you do that math, it's roughly 6 seconds per rep. So you don't want to be just, right? You're not really going to get anything out of that. If anything, you're just going to get a head rush because your blood's bouncing up and down in your head and your brain, you're going up and down. So this is the last part I'm going to go over here. Well, typically, a deadlift is done with a barbell. So we're going to pretend this PVC pipe is a barbell. Let me give you the front view. See how wide my hands are? Okay, so they're not close to my body. I'm not going to be able to gauge my lats like that. I'm going to grip it nice and wide. Okay? I'm going to pull my shoulder blades back, not up. I want to pull them back, down and back. So I'm essentially pulling this bar as tight as I pop this PVC pipe, as hard as I can against my body. Okay, so I'm actually bending it back a little bit. You can see I'm pressing as hard as I can into my body. Now, as I go down, right, someone just lassoed me. I have my soft knees. Step away. Push my hips back. This bar, I am just pulling it back into my quads, pulling it into my quads, okay? It's staying close to my body. See how my back is staying flat too? I'm not rounding, okay? I'm not arching, okay? My head stays in a neutral position. I'm just pushing my hips back, back, back. Once I get about to mid-shin or chest parallel to the ground, I hold the 1 second, and now I'm going to squeeze the glutes and come right up. All right? See how that bar, it never lost contact with my pants the entire time. This is a big issue. This is the number one thing I see wrong. They're good. You're good right here. And then your hamstrings are so tight, they don't want to move anymore. But I already told you that the bar should come down to mid-shin. This is what starts to happen. And the bar starts traveling away from the body. This just screams lower back issues, okay? Because now no longer are you really connected to that lower body because the spine's not in alignment, right? Now every single vertebrae is trying to stand you back up, and it's just going to cause injuries. So that's what we see a lot of injuries come from, is that rounded or arching back of a deadlift. Okay? So pull that bar nice and tight back, proper posture. You go down, parallel to the ground, squeeze the glutes to come right up, okay? That's an RDL, which is what this video is about. Let me show you real quick. A conventional deadlift with a barbell is gonna look a little bit more like this. See how my knees bend a little bit more? But still same thing. It comes from a dead stop on the ground. I have the bar pulled up against my shins. Everything comes to a lock at the same time. A sumo deadlift, I'm gonna change the grip. My hands are gonna be narrower on a barbell, okay? And my feet are gonna be super wide, toes out. But it's the same idea, right? You have even more of a knee dominant motion. So see how much lower my butt's gonna go here? This is on the ground and up tall, okay? So that's an RDL, along with just your overall deadlift patterns and teaching a hip hinge. A few cues I like to give you, I'll end on this note, is in order to keep this wide and pulled back, I always tell people, pretend like you have beach towels in your armpits and you're squeezing those beach towels, okay? You don't have any free hands, so you gotta put your beach towel in your armpit and you're squeezing it in there, okay? That'll help you engage your lats. The other cue I like to give people is, don't think about standing up with the weight. Think about pushing the ground away from you, okay? Send the earth into a circular pattern, right? So push the earth away. All right, so those are two little cues I like to tell people: pushing through the heels to push the earth away. That will stand yourself up all at one fluid motion, so the hips and knees come to a lockout at the same time. All right, so if you have any more questions on a hip hinge, on an RDL, on any of the specific deadlift patterns, feel free to reach out to me, or I can do additional videos on any of these patterns. Make a comment down below. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and found it informative and instructional. And until next video, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep moving. All right, get strong. Cheers.